All right, so I wanted to do this video yesterday, but the valley was reeling from the dirt storm that we had the day before, and there were a couple of lights out that made it incredibly difficult to get home. And cars were just darting through the intersection like it was the Wild West. There was no one to tell you to go. The lights were just flashing red in every direction, and cars were just flying through the intersection, just waiting for a massive wreck. But I got home from that, and I saw this comment from the Monty 700 that said it's almost like they want you to be homeless. And I wrote back, they want you to fear homelessness as much as you as necessary to keep you working to avoid you stopping working that crappy job that you don't want to work. And so you're faced with two tough realities. Either you work or just go look at your local bus stop because that's where you'll be. And it seems like a cycle, and I talk about this all the time in my videos, that you have to make it to the 30 days. You have to make it to the first of the month so that way you can pay your rent and you have 30 more days to figure out how you're going to pay your rent in the next month. And let's face it, the 99% don't like their jobs. No one wants to work at McDonald's. No one wants to do the kinds of things that we have to do because not only is it mindless and repetitive, you're not going anywhere. And that's the hardest thing to acknowledge is the fact that it's not helpful. In the long term, hourly pay is not helpful to you other than getting you to that first of the month and then giving you 30 more days to figure it out in whatever conceivable way you are going to figure it out in. And the signs are all around us all day long. Last week I made the video is that homelessness is the scarecrow that keeps the masses quiet. Because we all know what the punishment is for not having a job, and that's starvation and homelessness. Because no one's coming to save you once you fall into that part of your life. And I'm a person that has lived that life on many, many, many occasions throughout my entire life, starting at age 16. It's not easy being out there, and the chances of you not making it are high. All right, let's get into today's opening monologue. You ever realize your boss doesn't even need to threaten you anymore? The real manager of your life is rent. That's the unspoken deal. Work any job they throw at you or get ready to price out cardboard boxes on the sidewalk. Capitalism doesn't give you dreams, it gives you ultimatums. So, years ago in bad parts of town, they used to put up these billboards that said any job is a good job to convince people to take those jobs that no one wanted to work. The jobs that are slowly going to need American workers like you and me doing some of the toughest, hardest work you're ever going to do. At this point, it's unavoidable. Factory jobs, farm jobs, meatpacking jobs are in your future, especially for those people who want a white collar job, have a STEM degree, and think, well, I'll never have to work a job like that, because that's the whole point. That you set yourself up by going to university, like myself, you get a bunch of college degrees, and it's supposed to insulate you from bad jobs. Well, that's not the case anymore. These bad jobs are coming for all of us. Low pay, crappy conditions, and knowing full well that if you can't do that job and you can't get another job, you're in big trouble. In fact, last night I couldn't sleep. So I decided that I was going to do something that I would help me fall asleep because it would challenge me. I don't want to think about work. I don't want to think about my future. I don't want to think about my past. So I create these games. And this game that I created was, how do I find an egg without stealing it from my neighbor, the grocery store? How do I find an egg in my natural everyday setting? And the reality was, I couldn't. No matter how hard I tried, we don't have any access to eggs. Like I would have to go to a farm and lift up a chicken to find an egg. But in our day-to-day normal lives, that's not something we can get. And for a lot of people, something you can't get is a good job. We just don't have access to them. They're just not laying around on the street. You can't apply to them through Indeed because if you had access to that job, you would have already gotten it. So there are certain items in our society that we just cannot touch and we will never touch. The big line items are, of course, a quality vehicle, a nice home, and a savings account that actually has savings in it instead of just being an account that occasionally has a couple bucks in it. We don't have access to any of those things anymore. And most of us have been taught to look for those things. We need that savings account because what happens if in 30 days you don't have the money to pay your rent? Well, there's a nice spot for you under that bus bench waiting for you. It's open, it's got your name on it. And eventually, as this commenter said, it's like they want us to be homeless. It's very true. And for a lot of us, the pathway to avoid that isn't avoidance. It's not a matter of if, it's about when. All right, let's get into talking point number one. Every paycheck you get isn't freedom money. It's just rent you're paying to not be homeless. Think about it. You're not buying groceries. You're buying permission to keep pretending you're part of society. The fear of losing that roof over your head is the most expensive bill you'll ever pay. And the boss cashes in without even having to lift a finger. I'm going to stop this right here because I keep getting recommended these videos by this weird guy. And his content is very, very similar to mine. He focuses more in on how society has changed since the pandemic, how everything in our world has changed dramatically. And I'm willing to speculate here that one of those things in which it has changed is in the way that we interact with work. Because we're not supposed to dislike work. We're supposed to dislike work in the sense that we don't like going to work, but in the sense of actually disliking it openly, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to appreciate how do the rich people put this? The opportunity to be poor. And there's this one YouTuber that I keep seeing that keeps pushing this weird narrative. And his name is, he's right here. His name is Jacob Whelan. Whelan. He has 50,000 subscribers, but his last video, people have changed, and it's actually terrifying, has 1 million views for a channel with 50,000 subscribers. And I was going to make a video based on what he said in that video, and then I stopped myself and I thought, everyone knows that things have changed for the very, very bad. Because life never used to be this hard. You could work a regular job, pay your rent, and just live a quiet life. You can't do that anymore. The 40-hour work week has been dead a long, long time. And what we have left over, many people do not like. Many people go to school so that they don't have to do things that they don't like. But as one of my coworkers the other day said, as soon as I lose my job here at McDonald's, I'm going to have two choices. I'm going to dig holes or I'm going to be driving for DoorDash, which were two options he didn't really want. But where are you supposed to go? How do you put down the French fries and go find something that you find rewarding or find at least not to be as mind-numbing and boring as your current job with your current wages? You just can't find that. And people will not acknowledge the fact that we live in a bad society. The jobs that are out there aren't good for us. They're not even remotely good for us. Like the other day, I was talking to one of my female McDonald's workers, and she showed me her hairline where her hair was falling out. Like, not just a little bit, not like a spot, but an entire section of her hair was falling out. And this is something that I saw when I worked at Walmart. All the employees were financially stressed out. They had no job security whatsoever, and they didn't know what to do. And the natural destroyer of human life is extreme stress, especially when it comes down to the two things we need most: food and shelter. When you work at Walmart, those things are not guaranteed in any conceivable way. And even though this lady that I was talking to made well over $125,000 a year, she was still stressed, just like the rest of us. All right, let's get into talking point number 2. Gotta move this little clock window up over here and read this. They told us work was about opportunity. Nah, it's about extortion. You don't show up, you don't eat. That's not a career ladder. That's a mugging in broad daylight with HR holding the clipboard. The real job description is simple: smile, comply, and pray your rent check clears before your life collapses. That's truly what it is. I mean, yesterday I was in the break room with a couple of McDonald's workers, and we were talking about, what do you do when Felice Johnson wants a piece? And I said to the girls, well, when it's time for Pound Town, there's no easy way. And of course, they didn't understand what fleece was, right? But they both acknowledged the fact that sometimes it's out of your hands. Like I said, uh, this is what God wants, or this is what Jesus wants. And they both like smiled and shook and nodded their head. And they're like, yeah, sometimes you just can't get out of the way. Sometimes you have to go to Pound Town, even if you don't want. This is the same girl that told me a couple of weeks ago that she got out of bed. She sat on the side of her bed and she started crying because she didn't want to go to work. But she's also got 5 kids and she's a single mom. She doesn't have a choice. Sometimes you don't have a choice for yourself. Other times you have to think about your kids. You have to think about what you're going to do if your kids don't have a roof over their head and cereal in their little bowls. And that's what made her cry, is that she felt completely and totally trapped by a job that she doesn't like at all. And she's not alone. Most of us would much rather go to a job that pays us a living wage. And as I keep saying, living wages in this country start at about $150,000+ a year. And that's where they start. Because look at what a new home costs. Look at what a good car costs. Everything is far away from what we can touch on a daily basis. We merely survive every single day that we go to the Death Star. You sit at your job if you're fortunate to sit. If not, and you have to stand all day for an 8-hour shift, thoughts and prayers, people. I've been there. Standing 8 hours a day at a cash register or stocking shelves, you get home and your feet look like clown feet. They're so swollen. And there's nothing you can do, because even Amazon, this was a recommendation for Amazon workers: buy shoes after your shift so that you can see how swollen your feet are, and then buy shoes accordingly. Not, hey, we know the conditions are brutal. Sorry. No, it's they acknowledge the fact that their workers are being destroyed in real time. And that's every single job across America, regardless of what you do. Whether you're at McDonald's like me, or you're working, I don't know, at the Home Depot. For some reason, I've heard that working at the Home Depot and Lowe's is a really terrible job because it's minimum wage and you're on your feet all day. Anyhow, let's move into our conclusion. So yeah, the hidden contract isn't success. It's survival. Work until you collapse, or collapse without working. Either way, they win. And the punchline, they call this freedom. Maybe the only freedom left is admitting out loud that the contract was never fair and daring to imagine what life looks like if we're finally tear it up. For some reason, this reminds me of that lady, that old lady that no one cared about, that uh, met her maker while working at Wells Fargo very close to my house. That lady worked until the last moment, the last breath she had in her, and like a good little proletariat woman, she sat in her cubicle rotting for 4 days before someone noticed a foul odor. And that's the proletariat. We are that foul odor within corporations. And when they wheel us out, finally, when we bite it at work, that's it. That's the end of us. That lady never became rich. She never was successful. Obviously, no one cared one bit because no one bothered to call her or check where she was for 4 days while she decomposed at work. I've heard the same thing that happens to you at Amazon once you fall. You fall in an aisle from whatever, heart attack, stroke, and for some reason they have a thing against calling emergency services. They don't like calling the police and they don't like calling ambulances because they don't like bad publicity. So the workers are forced to walk around the body and continue working until someone shows up, gets a spatula, and picks that one up, takes it outside, loads it up, and gets rid of it. And work continues as usual. This is the America that we live in. We're all eventually going to fall poor, broken, afraid, stressed out, depressed. That's the way we're all going to go out because there's nothing to hold on to anymore. The only thing you hold on to from day to day is your extreme fear of eventually becoming homeless.